and UBS takes pride to launch the Center for Effective Leadership. This center is going to imbibe the ethos and culture of effective leadership into the young professionals. Now, I take this opportunity to welcome everyone. They say welcome is the universal smile. And proving this quote true, with all the beautiful smiles around, I take this opportunity to welcome all the keynote speakers of today's gathering, as well as the audience, which includes the students, faculty members, as well as the alumni of Universal Business School and the corporate identities. I welcome you all who have come here to grace this event. Moving forward, may I now call upon Dr. Raja Roy Chaudhary, the Director of Academic Affairs, UBS, to take over and share his insights about the Center for this Effective Leadership. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Priyanka. A very warm welcome to all of you. It's a momentous occasion for us at UBS. We were mulling it over for quite some time to come out with a center or a seat of excellence, and especially in the field of thought leadership. We had our own internal discussions and deliberations, and we thought it would be prudent enough to start during trying and testing times, because this is where you have the true essence of leadership. Before I talk about the center, I would like to go back about 13 years down memory lane. It was about late 2006 or early 2007. And there was this gentleman in Mumbai who had a very accomplished corporate career. He was popularly known as a people manager. He had a passion for excellence in teaching. Whenever he had time, he used to go to the best of B schools, and he used to interact with students, teach them, guide them, mentor them. In the process, he used to come across a lot of faculties. And as it is said in the marketing parlance, it's a share of the heart and the share of the mind. He also had his moments when it came to students and faculty. This gentleman is nobody other than the late Gurdeep Singh Anand, the chief proponent, the key architect, the first chairperson at Universal Business School. Mr. Anand believed in strong values and virtues. One day, he said to himself that he would like to contribute to nation building in his own humble way. So he embarked on a journey to create a seat of excellence in the world of social entrepreneurship. And as the great Mahatma had said, in life, when you are in the throes of making history happen, people will be your detractors. They will question your integrity. They will doubt your ability. He had his set of detractors too. But sooner, he won them over. A lot of corporate head honchos believed in his dream, and they all echoed similar sentiments. They wanted to walk with him in his journey. Last but not the least was his son, who was young, in his 30s, and who was jet-setting all over the world. He was a corporate leader in one of the best transnational financial conglomerates. However, he learned at a very young age the power of let go. And this is what I consider to be a unique trait in leadership. Today, when we take this opportunity to create this center and launch it officially, we should not forget that way back in 2009, when the first seeds were sown, the father and son duo tried their level best to run over many a hardship, many a testing, trying time, more than what we faced during the last 6 months of the pandemic, and they made it happen. Did they really want to create a B school? Not at all. They wanted to create a school which has a meaning which is other than the academic excellence that one needs to offer. A school which thrived on the ethos of experiential learning, be it understanding self by the students, getting mentored by peers, by specialized faculty, by corporate placement experts, by the industry, understanding corporate social responsibility responsibility in the various projects they undertook, getting involved in research, student consulting projects, understanding social and sustainable development goals, participating in various clubs to understand culture and embark on a mission of leadership. All these were not proclaimed. All these were not written on the board. They were very subtly experienced. And that has been a humble beginning of this institution. And when you create institution, you need willing investors, people who will invest their time and energy to make your belief systems very strong. So in my own humble way, in my 2 years of experience with Universal Business School under the leadership of Tarun Anand, what I felt that the school rests on the 4 strong pillars, pillars of self-conviction and belief system. Pillar number 1 would be culture. And culture is not one man's tryst with destiny. Culture needs to be co-created. And like his father, Tarun also embarked into this mission of inviting like-minded people who can create with him an inclusive, cohesive ecosystem. Point number 2 is what I believe as the dynamic mindset, the changing mindset. You know, most of us in this world, for whatever reasons, we thrive in a stigma of fixation. We should overcome that very soon. And Tarun ensured that as a leader, we all echo similar sentiments in trying to pursue a world of changing mindset so that we are open to embrace anybody and everybody. Point number 3 is what I call the smell of the forest. For all these eminent speakers in the panel who may not have had an opportunity to understand or look at our school closely, I would like to share with you, we are India's first Green Bee school. We had a lot of options in setting up the infrastructure in the hustle bustle of Mumbai. But this is where the key proponent, Mr. Gurdeep Singh Anand, felt the need to be close to nature, the need to be in an environment which is pollution free. And that's how we set shop at Karjat, 50 kilometers from the prime city of Mumbai. So that's where the smell of the forest. The smell of the forest is in seamless experience, be the student, be the faculty, be the general management people, people in sales and marketing, in pure admissions, be our external stakeholders, in people who come to the campus to take the students for placements, anybody who is part of our ecosystem, they all smell the forest. The last and not the least important is anybody who is part of this institution, who is part of this organization, who is part of this belief system, has to come with a sense of purpose and deep authenticity. I think in life, if you wish to be a leader, nothing succeeds more than deep authenticity. And this is where, as an institution and as the management, we try to ensure that we embrace people with openness and transparency. When we talk about the institution, we talk about a certain belief system. And when we talk about the center, this was just an icing on the cake. We had the belief system with us 10 years back. So we thought, what would be prudent and apt enough for us to embark on this journey? We went through a lot of philosophy, a lot of cultural experiences of great leaders, a lot of academicians who had deliberated on this concept of leadership, and we found that, you know, leaders are not born, leaders are made to happen. And at Universal Business School, when we talk about ourselves as a CEO factory, where we don't nurture managers, we create future leaders, then we need to ensure that we create an ecosystem which makes our practice perfect. So we try to imbibe in the culture of Dr. K. Anders Ericsson, who epitomized the philosophy of perfect practice. It all gels well with the belief system with which the entrepreneurs set this journey. To cut a long story short, when we talk about the Center for Effective Leadership, the Center for Effective Leadership will ensure in days to come that it takes care of the needs of the current students, the future students, the alumni, and even the corporate world. You come here for the small interventions, for the short courses, be it in understanding self, be it in understanding how organizational change will happen, be it in understanding the various facets or grids of leadership. I leave it to your imagination. At the end, I would like to say there are no written codes, there are no set rules if you wish to come to the Center of Effective Leadership. There are no designations, there are no remunerations. You come in for the sheer joy of participation, of helping nurture young minds. We may have great time together, we may have our moments of truth, we would tangibly map whatever we have contributed to the development of the young leaders in the making, and tomorrow we may say goodbye to each other. The show must go on. And as is the case in any organization which is on the threshold of making history, I would like to quote the great Mahatma again. First, people ignore you, then they fight with you, and ultimately you win. Without taking much time, I would like to invite our chairperson, Mr. Tarun Anand, to formally inaugurate the Center for Effective Leadership. Thank you. Thank you once again. God bless you all. Over to you, Tarun.
Thank you. So I hereby open the Center for Leadership for the entire nation. Thank you.
You can come in, Priyanka.
Thank you, Dr. Raja, and thank you, Mr. Tarun. Now, I would like to welcome and introduce the moderator for today's session, Mr. Chahat Mishra, who is currently working as a sales consultant for Europe and MENA regions at Valify Solutions Private Limited, a premier wealth tech company based out of India, Europe, and Singapore. Chahat is an alumni of UBS and is a certified negotiator from Yale University and Boston Consulting Group. And he is also a certified NLP practitioner from the Academy of Modern Applied Psychology. So a very warm welcome to you, Chahat. So the stage is yours and take it over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. Thanks a lot for the welcome speech. Thank you, Dr. Raja, for such an amazing context that you've set for today's special session. And thank you, Professor Tarun, for inaugurating this session today. First of all, I would like to wish a very good morning to people joining in from Suriname and the United States, and very warm afternoon from people joining in from UK, and a very good evening to my friends joining in from India. So we have a very good set of panelists from different walks of life who've gathered here to enlighten us with their views of leadership based on their experience, based on their understanding of the intricacies involved. And I'm sure today our audience will definitely take away a lot from this session. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speakers and panelists for today. The first speaker is Dr. Hubert Rampersad. He is a global innovation evangelist, a disruptive futurist, or you can call him as a global crusader for sustainable innovation. He is an award-winning Dutch-American global crusader for sustainable innovation and is a global warrior against racism. He holds a Ph.D. in Innovation Sciences, cum laude, MSc in Mechanical Engineering and Robotics, and he has done his graduation from leading accredited universities in the Netherlands. He brings over 30 years of experience in disruptive innovation, holistic and authentic design thinking, and change management. He has authored more than 25 books in many languages, published by leading international publishers like John Wiley, McGraw-Hill, Springer Verlag, Elsevier, Science, etc. And currently, Dr. Rampersad is the Chief Innovation Officer for Center of Excellence in Design Thinking in Miami, Florida. Today, he joins us from Suriname, South America. I introduce the second speaker for today, Dr. Prabhudev Kanona from the University of Texas in Austin. He is the Associate Dean for Instructional Innovation, and he has held the chairman position for the Department of Information, Risk and Operations Management in the McCombs School of Business, which is in the University of Texas. Dr. Kanona joined the McCombs in fall 1995 after graduating with a PhD and an MBA from the University of Arizona in Tucson. He loves teaching and takes immense pride in numerous teaching awards. Dr. Kanona is very, very fortunate to receive the University of Texas Regency's Outstanding Teaching Award in 2011 and being inducted into University of Texas's Academy of Distinguished Professors in 2003. He enjoys his research related to analyzing the value of social networks in the community, global sourcing, and of course, the business value of IT, undoubtedly. He's also a recipient of NSF Career Award, and Dr. Kanona is always expressive about his views on various political issues in the leading English dailies across India and various other geographies in the Europe. I hereby invite the third speaker, Ms. Vinita Ramtri. She has worked in most prominent and FTSE 500, FTSE 100 firms, including the Oberoi Hotels, Barclays, B-Sky B, and she continues to work in finance with some amazing firms and teams. As a leadership coach who truly cares for people, she works with people across the globe to zero in on their true purpose and then helps them to achieve their goals through relentless pursuit and deliberate practice. As a speaker and author, she provokes thought in a way that changes the way people think. She covers an extensive range of topics such as self-awareness, authenticity, purpose, meaningful goals, winning mindsets, personal growth, networking, and much more in the bucket. She has thrived in the corporate world for over 22 years across 4 industries, and Vinita is currently the head of risk for a tier 1 bank in London. If you had to sum up Vinita in 2 words, they would be intensity and intentionality. I invite the fourth speaker, Meghdut Roy Chaudhary. He's a social change maker on a mission to redefine the future of education. He's a community builder, change maker, you can call him as a startup mentor, a serial entrepreneur, a music producer, custodian of independent music. I mean, a lot of qualities in just one person. Initiatives and ventures that Meghdut has founded and is currently a part of is Blooper House Studios in India, Technopreneurs Surrogate Ventures, which is a startup incubator and a co-working space in Salt Lake, Calcutta. He's founder of Offbeat CCU, Topcat CCU, Y East, MIM Mentor. He's also serving as the vice chairperson of the Entrepreneurship and Skill Development Committees in the Bengal Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Not to forget, he is also the Director of Global Operations for Techno India Group, which is one of the largest knowledge management groups in Asia. He has lived, worked, you can call it, been part of various cultures across India, Brazil, US, Germany, France, and Israel. The next speaker is Subhashish Dutt. He is a 5th generation entrepreneur and co-heads the century-renowned brand Mohendra Dutt and Sons, which was established way back in 1882, which had very humble beginnings with Mohendra Dutt, who was the founder and a Pakwaj instrumentalist in the Bardhaman Rajbari of Calcutta, where the Raja apparently got his Britain-made umbrella repaired by Mohendra Dutt. Mohendra Dutt and Sons in today's times is officially the first umbrella manufacturer in the undivided India subcontinent. Today, the company has come a long way since we pioneered umbrella manufacturing. Subhashish is the alumni of St. Xavier's College, Calcutta. XLRI Jamshedpur, and SPJMR Mumbai. He is, as I mentioned, he is also the founder of Bengal Business Council, a resource expert in entrepreneurship at Presidency University, Calcutta, and a resource speaker in Calcutta Management Association. Last but not the least, I take immense privilege in also introducing our chairman and founder of Universal Business School. He has been an outstanding management professional and backed this institution by 60 global CEOs and business leaders. Prior to this educational journey, he served as the chairman and managing director at Thomson Reuters South Asia. Prior to this, he was co-founder and global head of strategy at FX Market Space and led the business across Asia Pacific. He also invented FX Settlement solution, which has won the FX Week Innovation Awards. And Tarun joined from Reuters, where he was global head of treasury and took the entire responsibility for a $2 billion business in revenues across 136 countries, spanning across London, New York, Hong Kong, Mumbai. He has had 24 years of experience in financial services, entrepreneurship, and education, including 4 years at Standard Chartered Bank and Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank. His specialities, just to mention, he is a serial entrepreneur, believes in treasury, FX, his philosophy in e-commerce, strategy, sales, marketing, higher education, banking, general management. So the list continues, but yes, he has always proven to be a very, very good leader, which has given a true inspiration for many of the budding entrepreneurs in UBS. I hereby welcome each one of you speakers in today's special session for launching the Center of Effective Leadership. Without further ado, I would start with the questions for the speakers. And the first question is for Dr. Hubert. Dr. Hubert, in your opinion, what qualities do you think are lacking with today's leaders? And how do you see design thinking and innovation as an enabler of effective leadership? Your thoughts, Dr. Hubert?
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. Hi, everybody. I want to congratulate Anand and Dr. Raja and your whole team with this great initiative. I like the concept. I worked with Dr. Raja 5 years ago in Silicon Valley. I was launching there the Innovation University of Silicon Valley. So Raja and I, we are working almost 5 years together. Now, first of all, I would like to thank you for this great question. Let me make some notes also, because I see that you have two elements in this question. The first one is what qualities today's leaders are lacking. And the second one is how do you see the link between that and this innovation and design thinking? Now, I would like to answer this question by the first one by referring to my quote I included in my new article on LinkedIn, and that is the future of leadership. And that quote is, personal integrity is the single most important quality that true leaders in the 21st century must have. And remember, the essence of great leadership is personal integrity and empathy, especially in this new normal of COVID-19, in the COVID-19 era. That requires sustainability. Dr. Raja mentioned that already. The sustainability is key. You will not survive in this COVID era if you don't focus on sustainability. I will come to that later on. What do I mean with sustainability? And by the way, if you check my article about how to redesign, you need to redesign management programs globally. Start in America, Harvard, MIT, Stanford. The program should be redesigned, and I have given the solution for that in my article. Will elaborate on that. But again, especially in the new normal, in the COVID-19 era, required sustainability. And that means we need authentic leaders who lead with personal integrity and empathy. And remember, personal integrity and empathy are 95% of true leadership. Again, personal integrity and empathy are 95% of true leadership. The other 5% is just listening well, guiding, coaching, blah, blah, blah. But 95% is true personal, is about personal integrity and empathy. Now, what is personal integrity? I have included in my books a methodology for that. I will not elaborate on this because we don't have so much time. Personal integrity is finding the harmony between your personal ambition. And what is your personal ambition? That is your mission, vision, and values. Write it down. Finding the harmony between your personal ambition and your personal behavior or the way of acting. If there is no harmony between these two elements, you will come into conflict with your conscience. And if you come into conflict with your conscience, then there will not be any trustworthiness, no credibility, and no charisma. So remember, personal integrity is telling myself the truth, while honesty is telling the truth to somebody else, to other people. Now, what is empathy? Empathy is the feeling and understanding of someone's attitude and experiences. Let me explain it another way. I included that in my book, Authentic Personal Branding. Empathy is the emotional connection you make with your employees and with others. So it is an inside-out process. So what needs to be done currently in leadership land, there must be a complete rebirth of trust in our leaders. Somewhere along the line, they have lost their authenticity, humility, and integrity. And in doing so, they have lost their empathy and their inner alignment. So that's why I like this school, because you guys are focusing on these elements. It's about a new way of life, and the timing is perfect. Now in the COVID-19 era, in the new normal. So the school, the launch of the school today is on time, okay? So that's why, because of the loss of authenticity and integrity and humility and empathy and no alignment, you have so much mismanagement, so much fraud, corruption in many organizations. Take a look at Google. Look what is happening in America, in Europe. Of course, there is also a lot of corruption in India. So you need to develop, redesign your programs to make it more sustainable. I plunged also in my book the related to this, Authentic Personal Branding. It starts with value-based leadership. You need also a new way of corporate governance, which I call authentic governance. And that is all about value-based leadership. You need to embed personal values in the mind of the chairman, the president, the CEO, the CFO, and all these employees, and guide them, coach them to reflect on these values. It is time that we become aware that corporate governance cannot be controlled with effectively with formal rules and guidelines and procedures only. It creates more corruption. It's about decency. It's about integrity. It must be cultivated from within. Again, remember, personal integrity has no rules. It must be a way of life. Also remember what Plato said in 340 BC. Good people do not need laws to act responsibly, while bad people will find a way around the laws. This is all about sustainability. Why are we still focusing in America, Harvard Business School, Stanford, MIT, Wharton, in Europe? We focus on the rules, the laws, and the guidelines. So let's not go too further on that area, because otherwise I will speak too long. I would like to elaborate now on the second part of your question, and that is how do you see design thinking and innovation as an enabler in effective leadership? Very good second part question. Remember what Einstein said: we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. Listen, today I may not mention the word BS, but we created a mess in this world with the old-fashioned thinking. We need a new way of thinking, which I call authentic and holistic design thinking. If we do not have a new way of thinking, we will not develop a new normal sustainably. Again, that way of thinking, I will send you an article, you can read everything about this. I have defined authentic and holistic design thinking as the process, the creative process of empathizing with yourself and the end user. And everybody in America, Harvard, Stanford, MIT, we are just focused on the end user only. Listen, if your designers are not ethical, they are not smart, they are not empathic, how will you make your end user happy? Please wake up, everybody. We need to have a holistic, authentic, and sustainable approach. Now, as part of this, and Dr. Raja knows this, I have launched also a sustainable innovation model globally. And it entails 3 types of innovation: personal innovation, secondly, corporate innovation, and number 3, social innovation. All 3 should be aligned, should be integrated. Now, personal innovation, what I have mentioned in my book, is the process of unleashing your creative potential and creating new personal opportunities for yourself. It is based on my book, Authentic Personal Branding. The second element of holistic, sustainable innovation is corporate innovation. Now, we know there are different kinds of corporate innovation: open innovation, disruptive innovation, but corporate innovation is the application of new ideas, knowledge to create new products and services. Remember, it is not about knowledge, it is about creating, implementing, applying knowledge in new products, services, and processes. Now, last but not least, as part of this that's innovation model, is social innovation. And what is that? That is the process of developing and implementing new ideas and solutions that aim to meet social needs. For example, Bill Gates is a real social entrepreneur. So key in this model, and listen carefully, students and everybody, the key in this new model is the fact that all knowledge starts with self-knowledge. All learning starts with self-learning. All innovation starts with self-innovation, which I call personal innovation. And real empathy starts with
He's lost connection.
Dr. Hubert, we can't hear you, Dr. Hubert. Fair enough. That was really remarkable as an answer to the question that we asked. Some good key takeaways from your speech, Dr. Hubert. You've said that personal integrity. Yes, we can hear you, Dr. Hubert. We can hear you. So I was just responding to your, yes, we can, Dr. Hubert. So as part of your response, you did mention about personal integrity and empathy comprising of 95% in any leadership quality. And you've also spoken about the emotional connection with your employees. You've spoken about rebirth of trust in leaders, which is very important. And you've also spoken about corporate innovation and social innovation, these terminologies, which we've got to know today in detail. And perhaps out of curiosity, we can definitely go through your articles and books, which you've written recently. And your book on authentic personal branding, I'm sure, has really remarkable insights. Thank you, Dr. Hubert. We have the next question.
Yes, I cannot hear you well, so I will come a little bit closer. So can you repeat your point again, please?
Sure, Dr. Hubert. So I just said that you very well summed up on the personal integrity and empathy comprising of 95%. You did mention about corporate innovation and social innovation. You also mentioned about having a good emotional connection with your employees in order to do well in any organization. And you also mentioned about good people don't need laws to act responsibly. So some really remarkable insights, Dr. Hubert. Coming to the next question for Dr. Prabhudev. Dr. Prabhudev, in your opinion, what's the morale around you that has constantly kept you to emerge as a distinguished leader in the education industry?
Okay, thank you. First of all, good evening to all of you who are in India. I want to congratulate UBS for starting this Center for Effective Leadership. And particularly thanks to Dr. Raja Chaudhary for inviting me. I don't know why he picked me, but thank you for inviting, nevertheless. I just want to, before going back to the morale part of it, which is a very a fuzzy word to use here, but let me give a context. I came to the US in 1989. And if we dial back even 20 years before that and say about 40 years ago, if you look at my background, my personality traits, the fear of public speaking, I would be fearful of engaging with strangers, grew up in a very protected environment. I could never challenge anybody who are so-called older by age, not by wisdom. The way we grew up, no one, including me, would believe that I'm an associate dean in a place called Texas, which has a very checkered past, in a very large public university, and I've written hundreds of articles, over 50 opinion articles across the world. Okay, the reason I'm saying is not to brag, but just to give a context. What you see today was not what I was 40 years ago, which means everybody can evolve. That's the big learning here, which has also has motivated me to think deep and hard, everything, my experiences, the way I was taught from kindergarten to college. If you ask me, pick one teacher who has influenced you, I scratch my head who it is, right? I can't think of them. And that motivates my teaching. So the basic premise of teaching is everybody who sits in front of you, irrespective of their background, whether they come from wealthy background or from poverty, everyone can achieve far more than what you have achieved standing in front of them. If you don't have the basic premise of that, you'll never be a good faculty. Now, I just want to refer to how universities work. And this is not unusual here or in India. And I want to quote what Eric Schmidt said, who was a former CEO of Google. And he quoted Andy Grove, the founder of Intel. He said, high tech runs 3 times faster than normal businesses, and the government runs 3 times slower than normal businesses. So there's a 9 times gap. In fact, it's not 9 times gap. It is when somebody goes slow, you square them. So it is 18 times gap. That's the way it works. And education, frankly, works 18 times slower than industry. We always try to catch up. That's not the way it was 50 years ago. It has become like that now. Okay. Now, why is that relevant for this question is who makes these decisions to go faster? Is individuals. You cannot expect an institution to do it. And that's where you start to challenge a lot of the conventional wisdom, right? And the reason I like the Center for Effective Leadership, and just want to tell you, Dr. Chaudhary, have never accepted many talks to ever give in India or here. I always kept myself, I wrote and never participated in anything. Physically, never would go there because I never thought I would make much impact. But this one intrigued me because when I grew up in the, it's now called NIT, Surathkal, we had nothing like this. We went there, we studied, we got, that we studied only for the last 2 weeks before the exam, did very well, got a job, and that's the end of it. We never had made any impact to people around us. Zero. We didn't know what leadership was. Okay. Today, life is very different. The students who come in front of you, including there are many here, or all of you here, have a big objectives in life. How to make an impact in society. And I can promise you when I grew up, the only objective is how do I get a job in a government and have a life of almost retirement. That's the way we grew up. And what motivates me is that only one thing is how do I bring the best out of the students, not by teaching, just creating the environment for them to flourish. And that, not to brag too much, in 25 years of teaching, I have about 35 teaching awards and honors, is only one belief that you shut off yourself from that slowness around you and you charge ahead because you have the freedom to do it in the class. And that's what you stand for. And if you remember, I'm not using any buzzwords in any of my talk. I'm not using any big thinking around it. It is very simple. Understand your role, understand who is in front of you, and what makes society better in the future. Is nothing but purely 100% all of you here is because of education. And I'm in that position to influence the students. And you cut off everything about the slowness around you and you charge ahead. So I've done a lot of these things for the last 25 years, just motivating students to think something beyond what you would have done just in a classroom. And by the way, if I lie that I influence, I'm actually wrong. I get influenced by the students tremendously today. We started a non-profit to support primary education in India. It started by the students questioning, asking me something, and I realized, wow, I don't have an answer for it. I just don't want to take too much time. I'll just give you a brief example here. I started the India program in Macomb School of Business in 2004. So along with that, I brought about 30 MBA students, mostly white students, to India. And I asked them, what do you like to see? And I would thought they'll say Taj Mahal in Agra or fancy places. And it turned out half the students asked, I would like to talk to a non-profit dealing with children. And I'm thinking, oh boy, which one should I pick? You know, it struck me hard that there is an orphanage near our house in Bangalore. It was 100 meters from my house. Never once questioned what happens inside that place. And never once peeped into that place to see what happens, who they are. I come to this country and questions come like this and say, gosh, where do I take them? I turned out in Delhi, in old Delhi, there's a place called Qatar. We took them to there in the heart of the slum. When I took there, I was very ashamed of myself to take them to the slum because what am I showing about India? I look around and I look at all the students. They were actually walking in that slum without feeling shameful. But I was shameful thinking I'm showing them the bad part of India. That was the moment changed my entire outlook. I should be ashamed why children have to grow that way and not be ashamed that I'm showing this to foreigners. And that's how the origin of our nonprofit. How do you make that impact on society? That's why Dr. Chaudhary, why I agreed to be here is precisely for that reason. How do you motivate students and how do you get motivated by students to make this big impact? I'm going to stop there. I can never give too much time to professors. They'll take their entire time. I'm going to stop here and I'm going to answer. I hope I answered the question. It's very simple. it's not too complex. How do you make an impact on society?
That was really amazing, Dr. Prabhudev. Some really practical insights coming from you. And you've made some really remarkable points on having equality as a focus in your classroom surroundings. You've talked about that anybody and everybody can be an achiever. That's one of the key takeaways. You said that have a purpose in life and also create a very sustainable environment, be it in a class, be it in your organization, and make everyone's presence felt in the team. And you've also elaborated on your very humble beginnings. From India, you went on to Mecom School of Business, and now you've been able to, kind of teach many students over the years. That's really great, Dr. Prabhudev. Thanks a lot for those insights. Coming to
Thank you.
the third question, it's for Vinita. Vinita, your insights on, you've worked in various industries, you have trained people in the various industries, being a leadership coach. And how does the leadership culture change across all the industries that you've worked for? And what is that one binding factor across all the industries that keeps the people connected at all points of time?
Wow, that's a big question. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, yes, Vinita.
Yeah. So I think going to the first part, like, what have I kind of seen across the various industries? So just for the benefit of the audience, I'll explain to you, because very often when people will look at my profile, they'll think that I've probably moved around industries just randomly. But given that I am from an Indian background, of course, and it is an Indian school, and I'm guessing out of the 192 participants I'm seeing out here, there will be a lot of female participants as well. So I'm guessing obviously leaders can be male, female, anything. So I just want to give a bit of a background as to why I've been through the various industries. So I grew up in Jaipur, and I was in a boarding school there. It's called Maharani Gayatri Devi. So I don't know if people know, but generally she's, it's MGD. It's quite a well-known boarding school. But I grew up there, and I then decided that I wanted to go into hotels, and I did my hotel management. I got selected through the campus interviews into the Oberoi Center for Learning and Development. So you've been speaking about Delhi. So in Delhi, there's the OCLD in the Oberoi Maidens. So I was there, and the reason I wanted to continue with hotels, and I was very passionate about it. But going back to the Indian culture and everything, the whole system was a bit like, when you get married, good girls don't work in hotels. So there's a bit of a background there to say, okay, शादी हो रही है, कैसे करेंगे, घर time पे आना है, आप छोड़ दो. So छोड़ दिया, so it was like, okay, fine, leave it, because Indian values, you kind of go, okay, fine. And then I moved to Pune, actually, and that's when I then got, because I'd always been a speaker, so in school and all, I would always debate, and I've been at Pilani and some of the other places. So I got a role as a trainer to say, okay, now you can be a trainer, and more of speaking skills. So then I joined in Pune, there's a BPO kind of GE type organization, WNS, and I became a trainer there. I was doing a lot of leadership sessions and things like that. So to your point about leadership, at that point in life, the leadership that I saw was very much about, leaders were generally male dominated, it was a male dominated culture in some sense, I would say, from what I would see, not in a bad way, not in a good way, but I'm just saying what I would observe. In fact, once, and I won't name it, but I went to an IT firm in India, and I went for an interview, and it was to be a trainer and a coach. And he interviewed me 2 times, 3 times, and he said, I cannot find a fault in you, but I can also not see a 40, 50-year-old Indian male wanting to learn from you. So I'm not going to give you the job, because culturally, they will not want to listen to you, because they'll be like, who is she? So leadership at that point was a bit like that, I would say. I hope it's not so much anymore, but anyway. And from then, I stayed with WNS while I was in India. And then my husband then decided to move to Scotland, London. So I came here. And again, because there's always been a process improvement, Kaizen, Six Sigma, change person. I came here and I then joined B Sky B. They said, come in for an interview. We really like you. Before I even got home, guys. So one point for a lot of you over here, we can sit here and say, okay, this is what is effective leadership. But an important point that I want all of you, 100 and 80, 90 odd people to know is that life will also have its way. So no one could have predicted COVID. No one could have, I couldn't have said, okay, this is what my marriage will bring. This is what moving to the UK will bring. This is what having 2 children will bring. But leadership, as I think we started on that note, is about how do you rise above those? Because you can know these, you can say, okay, I absolutely, respect everything that we've been talking about. It's about authenticity, it's about sustainability. But when life gets in the way, how are you going to rise above that and not use that as excuses is the key thing that I've learned through the industries. And it's the common thread that I would almost say that I've been seeing is the strongest leaders are the ones who've just been able to crack on with those pieces. And I've seen very different leadership styles. So when I came here, I went to Sky TV for an interview. Before I even reached home, I got the call saying, you got the job, would you be happy to join us? I joined Sky. And by that time, I figured our daughter in Scotland was getting very lonely, so I need to have another child. And then I had my son. So again, family kind of progresses along as your career progresses. And I thought, okay, now I've got 2 children, I've got a job, and how do I figure all this? So, sorry, that's my son. He's just decided to walk in. Rocco, you need to go out. You need to go out. Sorry about that. So you see, that's what happens. Rocco, you need to go out. Give me a second, guys. Rocco, you need to go out. So yeah, you'll just see. Basically, I'll continue with this. So yeah, that's what happened. And then I was with Sky for a long time. And then I got a call from finance. And finance, again, to your point about, male leadership. Rocco, I need you to leave. Finance about like male dominated, industry, I would say again. But in that, what I noticed quite clearly was that there was more respect. So there were fewer women, but there was you had a seat on the table. So I hear very often, when I'm watching any of the interviews, you would see much fewer women, but you've got a different presence, and you're, going to be going to have your respect over there. So I think there's these real threads I've seen across industries. Like in hotels, it was more, you're a woman, and the leadership is more of, you can do a lot of, housekeeping kind of stuff, the reception kind of things. Then gradually moving on to Sky, where it was more, I would say, more creative, where women had a very good space. And then into finance, where I see more and more, there's so much encouragement about, female leadership. So I think those are the key threads. And to anyone over here, I would say, whether you switch industries, never, ever look at that as a disadvantage. And to everything we're talking today, the whole point is about this whole totality of how do you bring everything together and how do you emerge as a strong leader. And nothing from everything that you've been saying, whether, some of us are writing books or we're teaching and all of that, it's about how do you bring all those unique values together and how do you make something strong out of it. So when I'm in finance today, I can see, the whole culture or, the whole customer aspect because of what I learned at the Oberoi hotels. There I've seen, how do you see a customer firsthand? How do you feel, what are they going through? So that I would have never got sitting in Canary Wharf. So it's about how do you bring all those things together? That's the thing that stands out for me, to be honest, Chad.
Yeah. So thanks, Vinita. You
Sorry about that, but he's gone now, so we're good.
No,
Coast is clear. But you see, that is the realities of life, is what I was saying. When you're working from home, that is what they do. They know mom is going to be on Zoom. I can go, it's fine, not a big deal, kind of thing.
Vinita, it's perfectly okay. We need to be original. So it's perfectly fine. So you've made some real good points on the essence of, people binding together, that the quality of staying together, being immersed in whatever you are doing in your job role or your entrepreneurial journey. You've talked about moving out from Jaipur to Pune to London and how this journey has been for you. So I'm sure there's been a lot of setbacks in this journey, being an Indian mom as well. And
also a single mom, because when I was in Scotland, then I decided that I wanted to now just do my, have my life. So I moved here. I'm now a single parent, and I've got both my children living with me, and I work at the bank in Canary Wharf, kind of thing. So it's combined.
That's really great, Vinita. Thanks a lot. So moving on to the next question, I have the question for Meghdut. Meghdut, you're a very young entrepreneur handling a very, I would say, a mammoth educational institution group, Techno India Group. In your opinion, does the entrepreneurial mindset, uh, you know, is it very, very important to be, an entrepreneur at such a young age? And if yes, in your opinion, what is it that, keeps you going in this journey towards excellence? Because I'm sure you have you have around 100 plus campuses with a lot of students and faculties managing all of that. It's a herculean task, I'm sure. So how do you manage that, all of it at such a young age?
Thanks for the question, Chahat. First and foremost, a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I'm not going to say good night because then it's the end of the program. But greetings to everybody who's joined in. Thanks to UBS for putting this up and for introducing us to Supermom Vinita, because now that every day is bring your kid to work day. The way that you dealt with that. I don't have kids of my own yet, but when I do, it was a good learning for the future. Leadership is in every experience that you have in life. So that's very important to acknowledge.
We need to take Vinita as a great inspiration, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm definitely connecting with her right after that and making a manual for leadership skills as a single parent, if that ever had to be a thing. But jokes apart, a very interesting question you asked about how, entrepreneurship fits into the overall scheme of things. And, I will talk about that from being both an entrepreneur from the education space, which is a second generation entrepreneur, and also having created a bunch of organizations on my side. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about leadership in general. And I think, we talk about leadership, in a way as if it's, you can learn all about it from a 2-hour session. It's really not. I think, first things first, we need to acknowledge that leadership is not a one size fits all kind of a bill at all. There are certain tenets which will hold true for every, truly great leader that you meet. Some of them, of course, I think we've already spoken about before. Empathy, I think, is very important. Understanding something from somebody else's perspective. I remember we had this session with a lady who, as part of one of my entrepreneurial ventures, a lady who's on a wheelchair, who creates clothing for other physically disabled people, right? And it's such an interesting idea that you have, you have somebody who is in a wheelchair but creating clothes for others like herself. And we asked her, why did you start doing this? Why did you decide to become an entrepreneur in this space? And something she said, it stuck with me ever since. She said, empathy is about understanding and acknowledging that no matter who you are in the world, you will never be able to 100% understand another person and acting accordingly. So I think, we talk about empathy, about walking the life in somebody else's shoes, but it's also about understanding that no matter how hard you try, you will never be able to understand the other person 100%. I guess so. A lot of learning comes from that process. A lot of self-development is possible when you're looking at, growing yourself as a leader and then effectively leading others towards a better tomorrow, because that's, I guess, the core tenet of leadership as well. Another thing that I have practiced, I've gotten better at over time, I didn't used to be very good at this earlier, is listening. I've always been a speaker. And I think that is one of the biggest disadvantages to being a leader. You can't be a speaker all the time, because if you're speaking all the time, you're not listening enough. Shubhashish and I went to school together. Shubhashish is, he's going to be the next speaker. I guess he's going to be talking right after. And he'll probably remember from when we were in school, I was at every single school fest that was happening. And I was at every award ceremony and, emceeing and doing all of that, which meant that, by the time I'm out of school, I'm already being called for professional events and, being asked to host this and that and, whatever, whatnot. And the more you go around talking and, trying to make your point, you're not listening to those you choose to serve or you aim to serve. So this is one of the big unlearning, relearning processes I did to myself in the last few years. And I think a lot of it also stemmed from the fact that at some point my wife was just like, you're an obnoxious person. I don't know why I married you. And so that was one of the real reasons why it started, like, can you just shut up and listen sometimes, because it's important. Otherwise, how do you choose to get better every day? Vinita was talking about Kaizen and Six Sigma and all of those things. And it's about incremental leadership. It's about getting better every day. So it's important that you listen. One of the things that I do in terms of leading my teams, I have a core team of about 15 people that I work with on a day-to-day basis. And then I have about 5,000 people that I am apparently leading. It's a lot of people, it seems like that. But again, I need to absolutely keep in mind that you cannot have a direct point of contact with every person that you lead. If I had to listen to the problems of every single person, I would effectively find ways of listening to them, but you cannot be directly having conversations with them, because then you're not doing any thinking on your side and you're not actually thinking about the strategy of the organization that you're leading. So I think there is some kind of a ground rule, a thumb rule on that. Somebody told me at some point that you can't be leading more number of people than you have fingers on your hands. I don't know if it's true or not. If it is, then I have five people more than my fingers in my hands. I need to either grow another pair of hands or lose 5 people. But other than that, I think 15 seems like a fair enough number. These are people that I trust with my life. These are people I also know that if I don't have to tell them every day what I expect of them. I think it's important to set the vision straight when you hire people. I have a very particular way of hiring people. I think the way I hire people is also very similar to the way I invest in or mentor startups. I really don't care about the idea or what the competence of the individual is. If they weren't at a certain level, they would not even have made it past the first criteria. I hire based on personalities when it comes to individuals, because the culture is very important. I think any organization and that organization culture again is developed by the leader themselves. I think the way you lead the organization and you give the exact same bunch of people to another person, it would be a completely different way of leading the organization. No two people lead in the same way. And which is why I think I will never be very comfortable leading a bunch of people who I haven't directly hired, because they're not an extension of myself then. I need to be very, very comfortable in the way that I work with them. Again, it might come across as a very privileged statement. I have been privileged enough to be able to hire all of these people by myself. But in a lot of places, in a lot of organizations, you do end up leading teams wherein you were not the one in charge of hiring them. So it's slightly a different process. I haven't been part of a lot of teams like that, so I will not be able to comment on that from my personal experience. So I'd refrain from that for now. One thing I think that there's been a monumental shift in the way that people look at leaders as well in the last 30, 40 years, especially in India, I would say, because as Vinita again mentioned, I'm sorry for referencing you so many times. If at this point, Vinita was a writer for a PhD, I think I've already done 10 references on her. But you said some things that really struck with me. So I'm going to keep reiterating on them. So the way I think the Indian male ego has been something wherein you've not been able to look at your own mistakes a lot in the past. And it's something that I think has really created a brand of leaders in our country who are not very easy to be held accountable for their actions. And it's not just in this country. I think even if you look at the average white male in his 40s and 50s, there are a bunch of people who are very the chances are that they are people who are not very comfortable with being questioned, right? So I think that narrative has changed a lot in the last few decades. And I think because of social media, because of the fact that a lot of the information is now freely accessible to people, and also it's very easy to build communities, micro communities amongst people. If you have a concern against a person, it's not like, okay, I have to go through the traditional way of going through an HR, and in some way there will be suppression from the upper management, and then I cannot register my case and all that. In general, I think the accountability has become a much bigger part of our leadership scheme of things. And I think I'm not going to comment on whether it's good or bad, but I know one thing for certain, that it's going to give rise to a lot more young leaders. And young leaders are the ones who understand the ethos of the people that they're leading. So if, say, right now I'm 28 years old, And I think that I've done a fair number of things. I've also not really achieved anything in life, so I don't know what I'm doing at the center of for effective leadership opening. But a couple of the things that I have realized by talking to people who are holding similar roles as myself in other organizations maybe are that most of the time they do not show any vulnerability. They would appear to be these ultra macho alpha males who are showing off that they know everything about everything, but it's impossible to know everything about everything, right? I think showing vulnerability is a very important part of being a leader. I know that my team trusts me in my judgment. If I have to tell them that, hey guys, I need to stop whatever you're working on, and the next 10 days we're going to take up this experiment and we'll run it and we'll do an A/B testing and we'll figure out if it works. You might not get a lot of sleep in these next week. They know that I'll be awake with them that entire time, taking care of that particular assignment with them. And I know that they would be willing to take that leap of faith, because I also start with, hey, you know what? I don't know what is at the end of that tunnel. I am not coming here from a moral higher ground telling you this is, I know for a fact this has come to my vision and I know this is what the outcome is going to be. Do it and you shall have success. I don't know. Most people don't know. Most of the times we end up creating this facade around ourselves where we pretend that we know a lot of things, and at the end, life does not come with an instruction manual, right? I wish it did. Sometimes it'd be cool. We would have known that, okay, 2020 February you would have this massive pandemic. No, it doesn't. We know, none of us knows what's coming up. So in that way, I think a very important part of effective leadership is also taking each day as the day itself, and not going over and above that in our pursuit of coming across the all supreme leader, because I think that narrative of the all supreme leader has also changed quite a bit in recent times. I'll talk about two more things if I have time, and I haven't even gone to the
big. We have a lot of other questions.
Great. So, okay, let me come back to then. Let's rest my case there. And I know I've been blabbering for a bit.
We'll come to you again. We'll come to you
again.
Sure,
absolutely.
Some really good insights, Meghdut. You've spoken about the organization culture. Individual culture is very, very important. Showing vulnerability is a very important aspect of being a leader, as you said. And you've also said that leadership is not a one-size-fits-all thing. So you focused on empathy, and you also said that you won't be able to understand others 100%, absolutely. So
it's really, just not really possible. Good. Yeah.
Thanks, Meghdut. So from here on, speakers, we'll try and keep our answers as precise as possible, because we need to have a lot of questions answered from many of you at this point of time. And audience who are attending this session, please bring in your questions in the chat box. We will try and take up a few of those questions towards the end of the session. So I have the next question for Subhashish. And Subhashish, I should call you an umbrella man, because coming from that background, a very renowned background of being the first umbrella manufacturer from Calcutta, how has your experience been, and did you notice any changes in the leadership styles in your legacy that has been carried from the last 5 generations? What are your thoughts on this, Subhashish?
Thank you, Chad, for the question. And I'll try to figure out a method by which I can concise the answer of those 5 generations into that 5 minutes that I take of your time. So while talking of sustainable leadership, let me give you a view from a perspective of a century-old family-run business, and how really changes in leadership through generations have impacted behavior, performance, and market status. I'm leading as the 5th generation entrepreneur of a 140-year-old business at a time when 1/3 of family businesses last into the 2nd generation, and just around 12% remain viable into the 3rd generation. I would admit that the reins of autocratic leadership has really paved the way into being a more participative leadership in recent times, at least for my organization. Fellowship at workplace and initiative encouraged. And although that the controls still remain with the head of the family, the approach has substantially changed. But again, uncertainty about the levels of autonomy across the generations, the hidden agendas within the family members, lack of dynamism of certain members, family in particular. I would say there's a lot of dynamism with regard to the non-family members in the management. But in terms of the family members, the lack of dynamism is very evident. The potential for nepotism and irrational decisions at times, all of these contributing factors decide on how well we can sustain leadership. Now, everyone wants credible leaders with integrity and with the passion to drive an organization forward. But sometimes selfish desires, and when I mean selfish desires, really selfish desires, take over, and the battle is really between the self and the organization. Coming to the point of diffusion of the values, the competence, the knowledge from one generation to the other. This diffusion is a really difficult proposition, and sometimes it can turn really brutal. So hence, the style of leadership will be impacted through the generations, and no doubt about that. But the leadership ethos should not at any point be diluted. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, yes, Subhashish. So you did mention about bringing dynamism in the leadership style in today's generation of leading businesses. Um, I mean, that's a very difficult journey. Continuing the business from the last 5 generations and taking it forward and ensuring that it's a big success even now. So I understand the pressure to stay, competitive in this environment, but really, really appreciate your answer for this question, Subhashish. Coming to the next question, it's for Tarun. Uh, Tarun, you have been a global entrepreneur. You have had a very plush life in your corporate career. And being the chairman and managing director of South Asia and Thomson Reuters, you've kind of led big teams in various geographies. And after having left that to pursue your passion for starting an educational institution, and that to one of, I would say, the first Green B school in India. How was this journey, possible for you? And how do you see a success and failure as a key indicator in testing a true leader? What are your thoughts, Tarun, on that?
Thank you. Firstly, amazing, delivery by all my co-panelists. Really enjoyed. There's not much left to say. They've covered all bases. So I'll just start with yes, people know me as a corporate guy who left his corporate world to get into the field of education. I actually started my career as a door-to-door salesperson, right? Ringing doors in Breach Candy in Mumbai, getting doors slammed on my face. So a lot of rejection at a very, very early age. Was depressing, figuring out how do you get through that door when you wouldn't even be given a few seconds, right? You ring the door, and we used to start selling because it's residential selling. You have to start knocking doors at 6 in the morning. Now, how happy would your mother be if I rang your bell at 6 in the morning in Mumbai, right? During rains or come, the summer. So that's the kind of starting point I had. Then of course, started my career in a startup actually. Then moved around with the world of multinationals. Had phenomenal experience there. I would have to profess, I never wanted to leave India. I was too, thrilled about being in India. I had no qualms of studying abroad, no interest whatsoever, but as Vinita said, you can't choose some of these paths. You just, you were thrown into, so I was in London for several years. I worked in Canary Wharf, and then, moved to Wall Street, got an experience of the hardcore, metal with the hedge funds and the big investment banks. And then, so Bank Street, Wall Street, and then I thought I'll throw myself out into the open and go to Asia. Yeah, we are Indians, so we are part of Asia, but I wanted to work and learn about, how to do business with the Chinese, the Japanese, the Taiwanese, the Southeast Asians, the Aussies. So I said, okay, I've got a great job. Every time I reached a point, I loved the concept of throwing it away. And people said, you're pagal hai kya? I mean, you built it, you've done it, you're living in a wow factor, and then you give it up. So that's been my continuous fun in my life. And some of the learnings I would love to share, in terms of the concept of, I call, risk, fail and learn, right? I've taken a million risks in my life. And to my mind, that's the reason I'm here, and made a million failures. Uh, and the only reason is because every time you fail, you learn. So failure is actually very, very important. And I know we in India tend to look down very poorly on failure. But for me, I am today what I am because of the millions of failures I've had. So fail fast, don't make the same mistakes. Keep volunteering, I would say, getting new experiences. When you're at the top of the game, right? You're running a $2 billion business, and then you throw it to set up a startup. And then when you've taken that startup to a great, you throw it to go to a region where you've never worked in, right? So throw yourself into the unknown. And I think that's one of the way you reinvent yourself and actually learn, because it's such a different stimuli that you are faced with. And I always think you either you sink or you swim, right? And that's the whole game plan. So I would, say the learnings for me was, how can you be a windmill, right? Seek an opportunity in a crisis. So when the storms are approaching, right? There are those who will dive in for the bunkers. There are those who will then say, no, wait a minute, the storms hit us. Let's look to harness the storm. Let's create some positive energy, right? So the COVID hit most businesses around the world, including education institutions. The choice was to say, oh my God, what are we going to do? So we're very proud that, we got ahead of the curve, took the bull by the horns and said, okay, let's create a windmill. So be a windmill is what I would like to say is our philosophy. Don't dive. Look at how you can harness the energy. From a leadership perspective, I would always say, I'll always think about it as servant leadership. So I did hear that word in terms of being humble. There's a lot you can learn from your team, and always hire people smarter than you, and then try and foster collaboration, openness, and transparency, so that you develop a model where it's not always your idea, it's the team's idea. And when the team comes up with the idea, it's a higher probability of it getting executed. So I've seen that around the world in my experiences. Another point I would love to say is, there are going to be tough times. There are going to be very tough times. So how do you deal with those tough times? I've always chosen to have the courage, and I always advise my students, have the courage to pick the highest mountain to climb and the dullest day to shine. So when you're feeling low, those are the moments you have to seek out the toughest challenges. Do your best to achieve it, right? Don't just say, okay, let me hide for cover. The real leaders are the guys who come out, in these times. These are the tough times that really show what is leadership all about. I think it's a huge privilege and responsibility for all us leaders in this group. We need to be a force multiplier for good, and the impact and influence must extend far beyond the organization, right? So I think that's what leadership is. It's a huge responsibility which we've been granted. And finally, to keep it short, is gratitude. I think it's a constant thing. You've got to know that to say thank you to every moment that you've had, which is wonderful and not so wonderful. So if you can create that, I think you're in the right position.
Thanks a lot, Arun. You've always been a fountainhead of illuminating ideas for a lot of people, I must say. So you've made some real remarkable points on you were a hardcore sales person at your early career, and then from there how you went on to becoming a global financial entrepreneur. You talked about risk, fail, and learn. If you fail, you don't lose, you learn from that process. That's a very, very good point. You talked about servant leadership. Very few people in today's times talk about servant leadership. And it's very, very integral to have this culture ingrained in any organization to prosper. Then you talked about being a windmill, harnessing your energy, force multiplier, the good, and hire people smarter than you, just to bring it in a nutshell, Tarun. Thanks a lot. There's a question that's coming on from the audience at this point of time. I'll keep it open to any of the speakers who would like to take up this. What do you need to change to become more effective when it comes to you casting vision as a leader? I repeat, what do you need to change to become more effective when it comes to you casting vision as a leader? I keep it open for any of the panelists.
I'll take that.
Maybe Vinita, yes, sure.
So I think the way, if I phrase the question correctly, is what do you need to be more effective when, which is more impact as a leader for people to want to do something for you, right? So I'll probably borrow from Tarun's idea. I absolutely agree with that, is that if the vision is of the people, then that is when the people are bought into it. And actually, I'm reading George Orwell's Animal Farm. And you can see, the vision is of the animals and they are dying, creating the windmills. So, they're absolutely exhausted. And if anyone's not read Animal Farm, you have to go buy it and read it. It is a must read. Yeah. I barely get 5 minutes a day, but I make sure I read a bit, 2 pages. But it is that vision that where people feel this person stands for me, rather than this person is a leader. It is not we who make ourselves leaders or our titles, right? It is the people. Without the people, there's no leadership. You're just a visiting card, frankly. Who cares, kind of thing, right? So it is just that. And when you have that, I mean, it is so phenomenal. I cannot tell you. Like right now, some of you are confused about my profile. You've asked like whether I'm a coach or I head up risk at a bank. I do all of that, right? So I do a few things, but that is where the leadership comes in, is that people will literally, normally, if anyone understands the culture, is that, you kind of try and hide the problems or the failures from the person who looks after risk, okay? Because you say, oh, she's going to get down on you like a ton of bricks to say you got a problem, you failed. But they will actually come in with that to say, I've got a problem, help me. So if people have come to you once and they found that you actually were able to help them, that's your impact done. Because the next time they will come again, because that is the thing. And it's not instant success. So whoever's asked that question, don't look for it to say, okay, today I've put myself out there, I've done an intro, the whole world will start to believe in me. It's not that. Reputation is the series of, unbroken moments of trust. So keep building that trust and the impact will genuinely grow. I mean, that's why we're talking about leadership that sticks, right? That is the only leadership that can stick. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, may I elaborate also on that? And that is that how do you build that trust? That is the key. And create that trust, you need to create an environment and a learning culture of trust. And that is where I come in with the alignment between your personal ambition and the corporate ambition. And have a trusted relationship, as Mr. Arun said, Anand, then you will create an environment of trust, because trust is the key at the moment in the world, in the sustainability land. So that is the issue which I hope I will answer one of the questions later on. How do you build that trust sustainably? And that is important nowadays in effective leadership.
Yeah.
Can I add one
Very
thing?
well. Yes, Dr.
Yeah.
Prabhudev.
Yeah. Remember that we are only listening to the success stories. For every one of us who are here, we all have been doing okay, and you hear this. Sometimes in practice, I've seen so many students. I've taught about 7,500 students. I can tell you, a lot of them try exactly the same thing and also fail, and they never reach the success they want. Okay, so there is a fallacy in whatever we say, that you're hearing people who have been successful for doing the same thing repeatedly. Okay, a lot of them fail. So the question of being good leader is that recognize you're going to fail 99% of the time. Most of you will try a lot of things and you're going to fail. The question is, when you fail, what do? Do you give up? You walk out? Or are you going to be persistent trying to do that in a different way or different form? And I think that's a very important thing, is because I've been teaching for a long time to know what works for one person doesn't work for the other person. Often what happens is you cannot just replicate it. You got to understand the environment in which you work. I can tell you, you keep hearing about so many Indians origin people are CEOs in the US, from Microsoft to Google and everything, right? And you see headline news. I can promise you, if the same people are in India, they would not be successful, most of them. So there's an environment in which you can thrive, and you got to pay attention to that environment. What is that environment which helps you flourish, help you make changes? So you got to understand those things. You got to understand what makes you be influential to other people to follow you. Tarun has been very successful. He has built a reputation. I can promise you, many of you will listen to him. Okay, but to get to Tarun's level, hey, he had to go through 20 years of or 30 years of work to build it. And the question is, we are missing that equation of how do you build it? And that's what people are talking about, trust. How do you build trust? And I would say the biggest thing for you is find a mentor who is like Tarun. If you don't reach out to those people very early on in your life, who can help you navigate this very complex world, help you pull you up into the right projects or right initiatives, or help you lift you up when you fail. You got to have some of those things. For every 100 people, I would say 99%, maybe the one person who might not need it. So you got to play that game. This is a chess game that everybody plays. Everybody is trying to move up. There's intense competition. How do you get noticed? Building relationship is probably the most important thing. And the second part is having the right mentors. And you seek out. No leader has become a leader by leadership coming to them. They actually sought that. How do you seek that leadership is extremely critical. And I'm talking from the perspective of the 150 people who are not, they're all budding, grooming leaders. I'm not talking about already being leaders. Okay, that's where I'm trying to address the question.
Dr. Prabhudev and Vinita and Dr. Hubert, very well said. And you've, Dr. Prabhudev, you've mentioned about, if I just sum up your, thoughts, you said that you should be a people's person and be working in alignment with the organizational goals, and do not be derailed, and have a mentor at a very early stage in your life to progress. So very well said, Dr. Prabhudev and Vinita and Hubert. Moving on to the next question I have for Dr. Hubert. Dr. Hubert, you come from a very a background which is Dutch American with Indian roots, and have been actively involved in the mentoring of young minds in various geographies across the globe. Was it easy for you to make a mark given the racial discrimination prevalent in certain corners of the world? What are your thoughts on diversity and inclusion? We would love to know your thoughts on this from you.
Yes, thank you so much for this great question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Dr. Hubert.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. In the new normal, empathy is important, and empathy is related to diversity, inclusion, and belonging, because it has a major impact also on innovation. And if we neglect that, we miss a big opportunity, because innovation requires diverse thinking. And diverse thinking, for that you need a sustainable culture of inclusion and belonging. And as you know, diverse thinking stimulates creativity, diverse thinking. So you need to build that organizational culture in which you have the differences between the I mean, the culture in which differences and similarities between people are valued, and in which there is a synergy between all these different types of people and talents and skills. And of course, and based on that, create a sense of belonging among these people. So it is about diverse thinking of people, and if we don't build, if we don't respect them, if we don't include them, we will miss this great opportunity to develop new and smart ideas. That is all about sustainable innovation. And yes, racism is an important issue in this. It affects the success of large of companies and but also society. So if diversity, inclusion, and equality initiatives fail, then you will not be an authentic leader. And it will not, if it is not measurable, then it will be not sustainable, and you cannot manage that effectively. That's why I have launched also a new way, a diversity life cycle scan to measure it. And if you measure it, you will manage it. And if you manage it, it will be sustainable, and you can flourish within your company and use all the talents to develop smart ideas. It is very important. If you don't do this, you will not be successful. And as a leader, you should embrace that. As a leader, you should act as a role model. You should implement inclusion and diversity sustainably to benefit of the diverse thinking and all the talents within the company and within the organization to build a more sustainable, successful company and a more sustainable and successful society. Thank you.
I think Chahat is frozen.
Hello, am I audible now? Am I audible now? Yeah, I'm back. I'm so sorry for the unstable network. Dr. Hubert, very well put forward on the diversity and inclusion bit. We will move on to the next question. There's a question coming on from the audience for Meghdut. Meghdut, you mentioned about unease around new team who haven't been hired by you directly. In an organization, when such transitions occur, what can a leader do?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, you mentioned about unease around building up a new team who haven't been hired by you directly. In an organization, when such transitions occur, what can a leader do?
I think it's a bit like an arranged marriage, isn't it? Like you come into the organization and then suddenly you have to make do with somebody that somebody else planned for you. But I think it's important that the overall vision is set very cleanly. Again, as I said before, that leadership styles are very different. So they might have been working with somebody else, and then that person might have left, and then that creates a vacuum within the organization. Of course, within any organization, there are power plays, and then say somebody else is promoted into that point. That I think is a lot trickier when, when promotions happen and you were a bunch of people who used to hang out with each other, and then suddenly one amongst you gets promoted higher, right? So remember in this movie, Three Idiots, there was this quote which said that, when your friend fails, you feel really bad, but when your friend comes first, you feel even worse, right? So I think that's very true for even in organizations, it's the same thing. When your friend gets promoted, I think you feel worse. But in terms of I think value setting, it's very important, because now you're in the position of power, you got to do something about it. What I normally end up doing, I think, is you have to earn their trust at the end of the day. If it's people that are working with you, the same way, if you've hired somebody or not hired somebody, doesn't matter. The work itself will become a leveler, right? So politics only plays that much of a role. Yes, there will be people backbiting, there might be things, but there might be an unease amongst the team. But as a leader, your role is to make sure that at the end of the day, the work gets done. So in order to get the work done, what do? You do team building. What do? You take everybody everybody somewhere. You go for a weekend, I don't know, get a place, do a weekend getaway, make sure that everybody loosens up. And we all know what that means in the corporate parlance. And then, when you're back on Monday, you're all functioning as a team, or at least pretending to function as a team, because a lot of it is also everyone's incentive. Everyone has their own incentives into getting the work done, right? Their bonuses also depend on it. So how long are they going to continue doing the politics at the end of the day anyway? Apart from that, one more thing that I end up doing a lot with my teams in general, and this is again not getting very specifically into the question that was asked, is I try to recognize patterns in everything that happens around me, which is, again, I think it's an entrepreneurial skill, or even a skill in the army, if you think about it that way. And it's a skill that you see in very successful leaders as well. The way it works between the army and entrepreneurship is very interesting. If you think about it, let's take the example of a country like Israel, which has one of the fastest growing startup ecosystems in the world, currently pegged just below Silicon Valley in the amount of revenue coming in from that country. And if you look at it, it's most of the big incubators, like let's say the 8200 EISP incubator, it's like the Harvard of Israel, where the top 1% of the guys working at the Israeli Defense Forces actually go into the army. And they need the same kind of skills. If you think about it, it's about doing crisis management well, understanding when to act, how to act. Also, like recognizing patterns around yourself, so that you can predict and preempt when there's a problem coming. As they say, prevention is better than cure. Nobody understands that better than people in the army. So these are, again, I think, very effective examples that can be taken from that particular industry and then, cut and pasted into another industry, like, that of, say, an entrepreneurial ecosystem or of a leadership ecosystem. And if you're able to recognize patterns within your teams, I think it gets very easy to take that narrative forward. If you're able to say, hey, you know what, this worked last time, this did not work, so we're obviously not going to try these things out. But also pairing up of these two for that project, or pairing up of these two people, and because of the kinds of personalities they have, that did not work last time, so I'm not going to take the risk of making that same mistake again. So these are some things, I guess. Again, I'm sure if you ask this question to any other panelist here, they would have a completely different answer, because as I said already, it's not a one size fits all at all, and it really depends on how you would choose to deal with that current situation that comes to you. At the end of the day, everyone has the same goal, betterment of the organization. And if it doesn't work out, it's going to be a bit like COVID, right? So COVID came to us as like a great leveler. The ones that are the smartest, the ones that are the most capable of reinventing themselves on the get-go are going to survive. The rest will die out. So yeah, I think it works the same way.
Thanks a lot, Meghdut.
Sorry, Hubert, do you want to go?
Mishra, I see a question here. It's important in the chat. Somebody asked, what is the old way of thinking? How can we get rid of the old way of thinking? That is a very important question. Can I elaborate on that?
Sure, Dr. Hubert, but we need to keep a check of the time as well.
Okay, but this is a very important question. The old way of thinking, I call business thinking, and the new way is authentic and holistic design thinking. The old way is using only your left brain. The new way of thinking is balancing your left brain and your right brain. It's about emotions, it's about imagination. And the old way of thinking is about rationality, is about analytical. It is not holistic and focusing on the species only. So we should get rid of the old way of thinking. That was just like what Einstein said. We need to have a new way of thinking. And what we're doing now globally is not sustainable. So way of thinking is focusing on the problem. So that we need to get rid of the old way of thinking. And I hope I can answer the
Sure. Yes.
the question later on that. And it fits to what is focused on the new way of thinking.
That cleared the air, Dr. Hubert. Thanks a lot. Moving on to the next question, I have for Mr. Prabhudev. Dr. Prabhudev, what is your secret sauce when I talk about leadership, what are those 3 to 5 leadership principles that is always instilled in you and urge to keep moving forward and train people in your academic institution, in being specific to MECOM School of Business? How has that experience been for you? And I would want to know those 3 to 5 key mantras in just a minute. I'm so sorry, Dr. Prabhudev, for this.
No. I'll be very quick. Look, I'm going to secret sauce. If you go and ask for leadership, you can find on persistence, focus, passion, integrity, empathy. You have all these things, but most of them are not very tangible way of doing things. Most people fall apart when they say, when you talk about these things, because I show a lot of passion and I don't see any success at all. So I'm going to not use any of those buzzwords. Once again, I'm not going to use them. But I'm going to go something because I'm talking about young people trying to become leaders. First thing is, in order to become a leader, you've got to first establish yourself as a reliable person. Which is where, if you're going to be into a managerial role, first you have to understand in a traditional role, you can do it very well. Because without doing that, establishing yourself, you'll never move up. That's the period. It never happens in the organization. So I would strongly urge those who are young people is, one, identify the right mentors and reach out to the right leaders and make sure that you do your work that is assigned to you extremely well while challenging the conventional way of doing things. There may be a better way to do. And question is, how do you bring those things while you're being still managing? There's a difference between managers and leaders. And I think you got to pay attention to those things, because you'll never reach that level unless you're good at something. Okay. And this is where I just want to talk about, a lot of business schools talk about leaders are made here. And that's the motto in majority of the business school, about leadership and leaders. I can promise you, most of them are failures. Why? We somehow make you think that you'll become a leader without establishing yourself that you're good at something. I want to pick up what Tarun said, right? He went door to door to sell. He learned rejection. Most of us fail in in how do you deal with rejection. That's why there are studies after study to show most of the salespeople, insurance agents, suffer with depression. The question is where that depression comes from, because of repeatedly hearing no, 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 no. So those of you who are young leaders, recognize our managers, you ought to want to become leaders, got to accept no's. And how do you walk out of that meeting when you get something no? And I just go to give you an example. I had a dean. You walk into that particular office, you ask for a lot of things, and most of the time you have very great conversation, and I walk out getting nothing. But I'm happy about it. That's true leadership, is how do you deal with people who are demanding all sorts of things, yet you can't give them what you want, but they go out being happy. You're not going to learn that very easily from textbooks, right? But you have to consciously think in your mind, accept this is the reality. And Meghdut made a lot of comments and I want to, if there was a time I would have picked on those things, are very important. When students come to you, you're not selecting them. They come to you. You have to still work with them, right? It is not IPL where you can select your players. The students come to you just when you go into an organization, you go into your customers, you go and deal with your suppliers. They are not picked by you. You have to still work with them. How do you work with them? First, you have to understand who they are, where they come from. If you don't know their perception, if you don't know where they come from, you'll be a very bad leader, because everybody tries to work in their best interest. If you don't understand that part, that everybody is working for their best interest, I'm not being selfish. I'm not trying to be selfish. They have their own interest. When you understand their own interest, and you know how to anchor and how to deal with those issues. These are a few issues that I want to talk about. You never become leader overnight. You have to work to become leaders, which means working with lots of people, understanding them very well. And you're going to see a lot of rejections. And the question is, how do you deal with those rejections? Do you get angry and walk out? or you smile and you want to have a beer with them, and I'm going to get you next time. These are all the skills that are going to be sustaining wherever you go.
So very well said, Dr. Prabhudev. Just cementing your belief system and bringing to light in the better interest of all. You mentioned about challenging your own self and being able to execute better than yesterday and keep doing it and being persistent. We have Tarun, who's always been a very a persistent leader. It's kind of always motivating his team members to be at their absolute best, which is really admirable. And leaders like of today need to know more about such qualities. Dr. Hubert also mentioned about open innovation and how we need to keep mentioning about design thinking forward. So all of these points well taken, but I need to now come to Vinita, where I have a very, interesting question for you, Vinita. Should a leader be empathetic or sympathetic, in your opinion?
Wow, that's a solid question. But so sympathy is when you actually, if I just describe what is my understanding of the two words, because they could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Sympathy is when you feel bad for someone. Empathy is when you're trying to relate to them, and then it's not, sympathy is more along the lines of pity, but empathy is how can I actually support you, and how can I help walk that mile with you. And going back to one of the previous points made is I can never totally, I would be lying if I say I understand what you're going through, because no, I don't. So that, let's just not even go there, because it's about saying, okay, in whatever I can understand, here's what I want to do. So as a leader, I would say sometimes, yes, it might start with sympathy where you feel bad for a certain situation. So I've seen a lot of people worry and panic about their jobs, every single conversation, what's the next announcement? Am I going to lose my job? So you do feel bad, you're human, you're going to feel it. But then comes the point where what's more important is that you empathize, but more important than both the two, I would say, is to empower people. It's about then taking them on that journey to say you have it in you, which is probably to all the people on this call as well. It's like, you do not need, somebody to sympathize or empathize so much as then you need to build that journey to say, now you've got the assets, you've got the power, the resilience to come through this. You just need to dig deep. So as a leader, you need to get people to start believing in themselves. And come to a point where they say, well, actually, I know you're there for me, but I can do this on my own. I love that stage when they really get there.
Thanks a lot, Vinita. I have the next question for Subhashish. Subhashish, what is most important to your organization? Mission, core values, or vision? Which of the three would you, rank as the first in the order of priority?
I would choose to have it all together. I mean, core values really guide us to have that well-formed, clear vision and lay our mission for the future. So I don't believe that one can be exclusive of the other. So let me explain to you with an example. So during the 1970s, while Bengal was fighting the national movement, and the organization was at the same time facing internal rebellion. So which led to the partition of the firm. So my grandfather, who was a very respected leader at that point in time, took charge, proposed three principles for succession. So one of which was to have a common advertising pool, to have segregated market territories, and an accumulated purchase negotiation. So all of that with the partition happening at the same time. But all of which did not really go well with the brothers who were part of the partition at that time. So when core values are really dented, so your vision is blurred, your mission at hand will fail the test of time. Coming to my experience in leading the organization with a really heavy legacy, I was exposed to the top brass of the leadership in our organization by virtue of being the son in the family. And I learned the tricks of the trade, the values, the way we work, a very hard way. And at one point, there used to be people saying behind my back, "Chote Malik with bade promises." But leadership has to be really earned. So when that is the case, then core values, your missions and your vision should be aligned with each other. And the small achievements that you make really may help you gain that capability to run the organization in future. So I believe that core values, mission and vision are something which have to be aligned together in order to move forward.
Very well said, Subhashish. Just to elaborate more on that, what you said, you talked about the legacy that you've had.
Yes, please. Hello, can I elaborate on that, please?
Sure, Dr. Hubert. Yes.
Yes, it's a very good point you make there. It is the alignment. This is what Vanita said. And Tarun, it's about trust. And if you align your personal ambition, your personal values with the corporate values, if you align that, you will get trust, you will create an environment of trust and learning and happiness and productivity. So it is not only about the corporate vision and the corporate core values. No, it is the alignment between the corporate ambition, mission, vision, and core values, aligned with your personal mission, vision, and key roles and values. And then you will create that environment. That's why you need the new HR system. The current HR system doesn't work. It is focused only on hiring and firing procedures, all blah, blah, blah. So we need a new system of HR. And Dr. Kunan Hubert is talking about coaching, mentoring. No, it's okay, but it starts with self-mentoring. You need to empower yourself first, Vanita, before you empower other people. So it is the whole process of alignment and empowering, which starts with you. The only person you need to be successful in life is yourself. And then you look for coaching of other people, get coached by other people. So it's a whole holistic, authentic, sustainable process I'm talking about. Thank you.
It's really, really nice to see this discussion becoming a very interesting debate as the prime time is nearing now. So I would just want to tell it to Subhashish. You said that you are a Chote Malik with Bade promises. Let me tell you, you're no longer Chote Malik with Bade promises. You are a Bade Malik with Bade promises. Because you don't promise. Because you promise, you deliver and you deliver it more. The problem with people in today's time is that they overpromise and underdeliver. We need to understand the day we realize that we promise, we deliver, and we deliver it more is the day we will start making small progress and towards achieving whatever we want to achieve. The last question I would like to ask Tarun is, so Tarun, you've had a massive experience, and UBS is known for some of the remarkable tenets like experiential learning, Be School with a Soul, and sustainable development, and now one of the first institutes in India with a Center for Effective Leadership. What are your thoughts on this, Tarun?
I think your screen is frozen.
We'll just wait for a few seconds, probably.
I think he's lost.
Hi.
He's there. He's back. He's back. Yeah. Yes, Tarun, continue. Please go ahead.
So, I think it's been great to have established these principles of experiential learning, environment, and sustainable development and ethics. So we call it the 3E framework, right? As one of the best basic tenets of what we put Universal Business School over a decade ago. And these themes have been professed and practiced across the business school landscape. I've seen people talking when I go to the US about experiential learning is now becoming huge. So it feels great that, we were thinking about this a decade ago. And that's some of the that we were on the right path, and as Meghdud said, we found the right signals at that point. With regards to effective leadership, the time could not be more opportune, as all the speakers have said, when the world is facing a complete leadership deficit, right? Corporate leaders truly need to rise to this occasion, and I believe each of our students, our CEOs, very well and emphatically put by Dr. Hubert, that you are responsible, you're CEO of your own destiny. So are you thinking deep and hard about how you are solely responsible to shape your future? In my career, it was clear there's no shortcuts to success, no get rich quick approach.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. I know it's probably in some book. There is no such thing.
Bang on.
You will need to strive to become a better version of yourself every single day. As life has no breaks, no timeouts, it's a beautiful game which you have been given and wonderful opportunity to experience. So get out of the locker room and the sidelines and get onto the pitch to play and enjoy the experience.
Thanks a lot, Tarun. That really makes a lot of sense. I would like to thank all of the speakers today for your valuable time and enlightening us with your thoughts on various topics. I'm sure there's lots we have taken back today. And I would now hand it over to Priyanka to take it ahead. Thanks a lot, speakers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful discussion. They say thankfulness is the beginning of gratitude, and gratitude is the completion of thankfulness. It's my privilege to propose the vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of each and every person who made this event a grand success. I, Priyanka Agarwal, on behalf of Universal Business School and the entire fraternity of the institution, extend my warm gratitude to all the speakers of this panel discussion who invested their time and knowledge and made this a great success. Today, we had an opportunity to hear about your great thoughts as well as to experience your outstanding leadership journeys. And now, I would like to thank Mr. Tarun Anand, the chairman and co-founder of UBS. Because of him, we have been doing this. And I would also like to thank Dr. Raja Roy Chaudhary, the Director of Academics and Business Affairs UBS, for rooting and executing this idea of Center for Effective Leadership into action. I would also like to thank the faculty members of UBS who are always so proactive and dedicated. Now it's a big opportunity to thank the participants of this session who made it to success, who made this event a grand success. This has been really memorable to all of us. A big thanks to everyone and cheers to one grand launch for the Center of Effective Leadership by UBS. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thanks a lot.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thanks,
Congratulations.
Thanks, Dr. Hubert. Thanks, Vinita. Thanks, Prabhudev.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Meghdut. And thanks, Subhashish. Thanks a lot, audience, for joining in from different parts of the world. That was
Thank
really
you.
great having
Thanks a
you.
lot.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Guys, are you there? Great job, guys. Matchworks did a wonderful job.
Absolutely, Swarnim.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And exactly, and Priyanka, like, wow, yeah, really good, yeah, really good. Like initially in the stages when when we actually entered into the group and we saw like around, like the people were extending the amount of people were extending, and it went till like 200, and the faculties and even the foreign faculties, they were very happy with that. And even at the end of the moment also, it went from 200, it till went like what we were thinking of, like from 200 to 150. So it was it was a wonderful experience, and such a great such a great discussion, and especially from each and every one of them. Like the questions were being asked really, especially by Mr. Chahat. It was really well done, well job done.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this was a great discussion, and we had
Exactly.
people from different backgrounds. We had people who had different journeys of leadership, who have seen the world, who have
Exactly.
immense leadership experiences. So this has really been
Exactly.
amazing. We had a lot of takeaways from this event.
And we didn't even face no problem, no nuisance, nothing. It was like a
Absolutely.
professionally astounded movement that was made by Matchbox. And it's such a great time period that we did like for 2 hours until 8. And especially in this time period, we did it in a very perfect time, starting from 6 to 8. It went in a perfect manner, par best.
Right, right. Very much
Exactly.
true. We hope everyone has liked this event and has taken
Yeah,
one or the
exactly,
other to
exactly,
take from this. Because these
exactly.
are the life lessons that we have got from these people.
Yeah.
We are budding managers, and we don't even know what is going to happen in the future. We
And
lack
we
experience.
like, yeah, exactly. We like still have 44 of my, like it's from our, these are the matchsticks, or they are from other clubs also. But if it,
There's everyone. There's
it's
everyone.
very, acha, acha, acha,
There's
acha.
ev-
But
yeah.
it's it's a beautiful time. What we saw and what we heard, a really healthy and a good discussion, and especially the debate that actually went little from a low point of time, and then from doctor's side, it went a very good debate.
Right, right.
Mhm. And
All
the
right.
audience,
Mayur sir, we can end the meeting for everyone.
yeah, 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 exactly. Okay, bye bye.
Bye,
Okay,
Swarnim. Bye, bye.
thank you, everyone. So, Mayur sir, you could end the meeting, sir.